Hi everyone, welcome to Web Design TV. I'm Wyatt, and today we're going to look at animating within Photoshop. Now the idea for this week's episode comes from a number of emails we've received asking if we could look at common features between CS2, Photoshop CS2 and Photoshop CS3, and also some emails from viewers who want to put together some simple animations for their websites but don't have access to Flash. Well, a great alternative for creating very simple animations in the GIF format, the animated GIF format, is Photoshop. Available in CS2 and CS3 is the ability to create animations from layered PSDs, which is what we'll do in this tutorial. What you can't do when creating an animation in Photoshop is to give your animations user-initiated interactivity, but we can certainly create an animation which can catch your visitor's attention. Now when I say attention, I don't mean you should go and create banners 1.0 like the ones we had 10 years or so ago. The ones that would scream out, blinking, flashing, and just be an absolute nightmare annoyance for your visitors. Keep your animations simple, less really is more. So over the next 10 minutes or so, we'll look at using the animation timeline in Photoshop, how to use Photoshop Tweening, and how to optimize and export your animations as GIFs and preview them in a browser. Don't worry if you're not good at drawing either, we'll be using images and just a little bit of text. Here we are in Photoshop, and we've got the animation panel already revealed. You can reveal that by selecting Window and then Animation to bring that up. We've got a layered PSD here. It's set at leaderboard size, which is an ad unit at 728 pixels by 90, which is one of the very common ad formats you'll see on the internet. The principle for animating in Photoshop is that you would create a layer for your static elements, in this case the background. You see we've got a background there which doesn't do anything, it remains stationary throughout the animation. And then you would create layers for each of the moving elements. So our moving elements are the car, and we've got some type which will pop in during our animation. Now the principle behind this animation is to get this little car from this side of the banner to go out of the banner, or to drive off away from the banner. Now the animation panel there, or palette, has by default it has a first frame produced. This represents whatever layer is visible, so the little eye icons there which change the visibility of layers, whatever you've selected there will appear in this first frame. Now if we click that first frame and then click the duplicate selected frame button, which is that one there, it'll duplicate that first frame, and then we can modify that second frame. So change the visibility or movement. Let's move that car up there, and let's turn the animate text on there. Let's move that a little bit further up. And if you switch back to the first frame, frozen in time is what we selected in the layers panel for that first frame, and then the second frame again what we selected for the second frame. So it really is, when you produce each frame, you are freezing moments in time. You are freezing whatever you selected at that point for that frame in the layers panel. So let's just create another, just to illustrate this, another frame for the animation. And let's just move, get rid of animate, put in me, and move that car a little bit more. Again, frozen. Go back to frame 2, frame 1, see how they change. And of course, if you were to watch those repeatedly, this would look like a complete mess at the moment, but it illustrates how in each frame you select what you want to be shown and what you don't want to be shown. Now as animations go, that's a bit of a botched job, so we need to put some frames in there to make it look very fluid, and we can do that by using Tweening, which we'll use in a few minutes. So I've got rid of those frames we've just created and gone back to the original position for the car and the text. I created a duplicated frame, and we have two frames there which are identical. Now if I select the move tool by hitting V on the keyboard, or the top icon there in the tools panel in Photoshop, I can click the car layer there and then move it across. Meow. There you go. Move that out of frame. Let's preview that by hitting play there in the animations panel. You can see the image just seems to pop in because it's not going from one side of the banner to the other, because Photoshop just sees, stop that, sees one image there, one image that isn't there. But we can fix that by using Photoshop tweening tools to fill in those missing frames for us. Now tweening will create intermediate frames in your animation. You create the start and the end frames, and the tweening function fills in the frames in between. Most software which produces animation relies on tweens to make objects go from one position to another. And we can do that here in the animations panel. So do that by selecting both of these frames by control clicking them. And there on the animations panel you've got an icon there, this little dotted icon, which is Tween's animation frames. So let's click that. We've got a few options here in the Tween pop-up box. Tween with selection it's come up with that because we've already selected the frames that we want to create tweens in between the tweens. So you've got a number of frames there that you can add. The more frames you add, the bigger your file size will be, so be careful here. You'll have more of a fluid animation, but it's a bit of a trade-off for what size. That you could get a very bloaty GIF animation by having 30 frames. You wouldn't need 30 frames for this animation, but it would look very fluid, but just drive your visitors mad by being too big to download. Don't fret too much about this if you think you've selected here too many frames, because you can always remove them later by selecting them in the animations panel and hitting the rubbish bin icon there to delete them. Now we're going to pick 5 frames to add there, and that's the default value anyway in that box, so that's absolutely fine. Now we need to choose the layers option here. All layers modifies all the layers in the frames you've selected. Choosing selected layers will modify only the layers selected in the layers panel. The parameter settings are fine as we want to affect the position, which is selected here, and these are all checked by default. And you've got three options here. Position, which will evenly vary the position of the object from the first and second frame. You've got opacity. Now this is good if you've created a fade up or fade down using the opacity slider to vary this in Photoshop. It's good for making transitions from one element to another. And you've got the effects. Now this evenly varies layer effects used between the first and the end frames, and we've got a bit of motion blur on our car graphic there, so we'll keep this selection checked. Right, so let's hit OK, and there you go. If you see in the animation panel, we've got our additional frames. Let's just click through them, and you see instead of the graphic just popping out, flickering, Photoshop, as clever as it is, has filled